5. Hidden dangers of traveling after 70. That every senior must know before their next trip. Harold and Betty, a New Jersey-born couple in their 70s, recently celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. Their gift to themselves? A transatlantic cruise through France, Italy, and ending in Greece. A dream trip they'd dreamed of since they were young. They prepared carefully. Passports, medicines, insurance cards, travel itinerary printed out page by page. We're still healthy. Let's go while we can. Harold chuckled as he lifted his suitcase into a taxi to the airport. None of them knew that just a week later, everything would change completely. 4 days after the ship docked in Venice, Harold collapsed one cool morning while taking pictures on an ancient stone bridge. Betty screamed for help. The heart attack came without warning, despite his extensive pre-trip medical checkup. But Venice didn't have the rapid emergency response system of New Jersey. They waited 3 hours for an ambulance. Betty sat in the hospital hallway, shivering, calling her children back home for help. These moments weren't in any travel guide. No one had told them about the real risks of traveling long distances for seniors. And Harold, though he survived, was never able to walk again. The trip became a precious memory, both figuratively and literally. Have you ever wondered, is traveling still a good thing after 70? Or could trips, instead of being a time for relaxation, become a hidden threat to your health, finances, and future? In today's video, we'll tell you real stories from seniors across America and break down 5 hidden dangers that most people over 70 don't realize when they're planning a trip. This isn't a warning to stop, but a roadmap to help you prepare well. And if you do go the right way, at the right time, and in the right place. Because the 5th reason, and the final reason, is something that almost no one thinks of, but it causes thousands of seniors in the US to return in crisis, debt, and regret. If you are someone who has ever thought about traveling after 70, or have a loved one who is preparing to do so, this video is for you. Watch this video until the end, because it might change the way you look at your travels in your twilight years. And if you find this topic really important, please click like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss valuable stories like this in the future. Betty sat quietly in the corner of the white hallway. Her eyes stared blankly into the distance, but her mind was spinning. Harold was in the operating room. It was supposed to be a peaceful morning, going to the floating market, sitting at an outdoor cafe, taking a few souvenir photos. But it all disappeared in an instant. When the doctor came out, his face was solemn, his eyes deep behind thick glasses, a look that made Betty choke. Luckily, Harold survived, but the doctor's words still echoed. His heart had been warning for a long time, but no one heard it. Betty collapsed on the spot, not because Harold almost died, but because she, the woman who had lived with him for half a century, had not seen it. On the flight back to the United States, Betty couldn't sleep. The sound of the engine echoed in her mind like a wake-up call. If he had died that day, I would have lived forever with the feeling that I had put him in danger for a pipe dream. A week later, at a regular meeting at the nursing home where Harold was rehabilitating, an elderly woman stepped up to the podium to speak. Her name was Margaret Lewis, 72, a former high school teacher. Who would have thought that a fancy dinner abroad could lead to emergency dialysis? All eyes turned to her. Margaret smiled, bitter and brave at the same time. Last month, I went to Spain with a group of old friends. Everything was perfect. The weather, the hotel, the itinerary, until I ate some strange seafood that they said was a must-try delicacy. 4 hours later, I had a seizure and fainted. The doctor there told me I had a serious infection from a food-borne bacteria, something my body, at my age, was completely incapable of fighting off. Her voice dropped. Someone in the audience took her hand and squeezed it. Has anyone ever asked us if our bodies after 70 can still withstand the strange, the unfamiliar, the unexpected? Has anyone taught the elderly how to protect themselves when in a foreign land? Sometimes, people only see the image of an old person traveling with a bright smile, comfortable slippers, a wide-brimmed hat, and a silvery blue sky and sea. But behind that photo, how many pills are there? How many calls to check blood pressure? How many times are they startled awake in the middle of the night because of a strange room, a strange climate, and a strange feeling of loneliness when they don't understand the language of the place they are staying in? The most dangerous thing is not the long flight time or the strange food. It is the subjectivity that everything will be fine. But after 70, there are things that if not okay just once, there will be no chance to fix it. Are we giving up too much just to feel young again? And perhaps what needs to change is not where we can't go, but how we go, how we prepare, and with whom. Harold and Betty rarely ventured outside New Jersey after that fateful trip, but sometimes the memories came flooding back. As the afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen window, Betty thought back to Venice, the place she had once thought would be her final destination, not in a romantic sense, but literally. At the nursing home where Harold was recovering, a woman named June Atkinson, 69, came to visit him every afternoon. She was Harold's old high school classmate. But June didn't come to catch up. She carried a fear, silent and lingering, about a trip she had never told anyone about. Paris, June began, looking at no one in particular. I loved it when I was young. Every time I saw the Eiffel Tower, my heart ached with nostalgia. Last year, I decided to go, by myself, because I thought, if not now, when? Her voice trailed off. No one intervened. The first day, I was fine, strolling along the Seine, eating croissants, speaking broken French to the shopkeeper. The second day, I had a cold. The third day, I was coughing so hard I couldn't sleep. The fourth day, I passed out on the way to the supermarket. The room was so quiet that one could hear the clock on the wall. They said I had a strange respiratory virus, not COVID, but strong enough to knock me out. The doctor asked if I was immunocompromised. I was stunned. I walked every morning. I ate well. I was healthier than my friends. But I forgot one thing. June paused, then looked straight at Betty. At this age, the body is no longer the fortress it once was. It is an old wooden house, just one cigarette butt, and it will burn down. People often think of disease when they see blood, when they see needles, when they see emergency rooms. But sometimes, a hug at the airport, a handshake during a social greeting, or just a glass of ice water served with lunch is enough for a virus to enter the body of an elderly person like June. The doctor in Paris told her, "You may have been exposed to a virus that the local population is immune to as a child, but your body is not." Here's what most Americans over 70 weren't prepared for. Their immune systems no longer function the way they once did. Like an aging army, they react slowly, are confused, and sometimes ignore even the most dangerous invaders. June had been healthy, but after just 6 days in Paris, she had to stay in a hospital isolation room for more than 10 days, with a constant fever, dehydration, nausea, and a cough that burned her throat. What made her collapse the most was not the physical pain, but the French nurse's eyes looked at her, pitying but also helpless. There were no relatives around. No one understood her mother tongue. Every cough, every call for the nurse was an invisible war with the world. A 2023 study from the National Institute on Geriatric Medicine found that after age 70, immune function declines by an average of 47% compared to age 40. This means that a virus that is harmless to young people can be deadly to older people if not detected and treated promptly. But what's worse, the elderly themselves don't know that they're losing their ability to resist, because they can still eat, still walk every morning, still feel healthy. until a small disaster comes and knocks them down in a strange place. June returned from Paris quietly. Her friends didn't ask her many questions. They just noticed that she was thinner, quieter, and sometimes sat looking into the distance. "Are you going anywhere else?" Harold asked one afternoon as they sat watching the sunset through the glass doors. June shook her head. "I'm not afraid to go anywhere anymore. I'm just afraid of not being able to come back." And you, the person watching this video? Have you ever thought like June? It's not the fear of getting sick. It's not the fear of flying. It's the fear of having no one waiting for you at the end of the journey. His name is Walter Finch, 76 years old, a former civil engineer, a man who has never known rest in half a century of work. After retiring, he decided to do what his wife, Ellie, had always wanted: go see the northern lights in Alaska. Ellie died early of cancer. Walter still has the last letter she wrote to him. "Go in my place and tell me in my dreams. Somewhere, I'm still waiting to hear you." So he booked a ticket, packed everything: warm clothes, heart medication, a digital blood pressure monitor, even the vitamins Ellie had reminded him not to forget. Alone, Walter flew from Minneapolis to Anchorage, more than 12 hours with 2 layovers. At first, everything was fine. He sat by the window, looking out at the snow-covered Alaskan plains, and his heart felt light. It was a rare moment after so many years of grief that he felt Ellie was still with him. But on the very first night, lying in the hotel room, looking at the pitch-black sky without a single star, he began to feel strange. "Probably just jet lag," he said to himself. But the next morning, as he got out of bed, his legs shook like he had just run a marathon. His heart was racing. His head was spinning. He tried to walk to the table to take his blood pressure, but he couldn't make it. He collapsed in the middle of the room like an old tree blown down by the wind. At an Anchorage hospital, doctors diagnosed him with senile ataxia syndrome, a form of total body collapse that occurs when the body is put under too much stress without time to recover. "We call it travel burnout syndrome," the doctor says, and it's especially common in people 70 and older, especially independent people who don't realize they're not the same person they were in their 40s. Walter nodded, a weak smile on his face. It was perhaps the first time he had realized that he was old, not in his mind, but in his body, which he had believed to be as strong and sturdy as the concrete bridge he had designed. After 4 days of IV fluids and forced rest, Walter was well enough to leave the hospital. But his ultimate dream trip to see the northern lights never materialized. He returned home ahead of schedule, with pain that was beyond the naked eye. The pain lies in the question: have I asked too much from my body just to chase an old dream? He whispered, "Ellie, I tried." Geriatric medicine researchers point out that after the age of 70, the body's ability to recover no longer occurs in a linear manner. Instead of recovering from a night's sleep like young people, older people need 3 to 5 days just to recover from a long flight. Every change in weather, air pressure, time zone is an attack on the autonomic nervous system. That explains why many people after a trip suffer from dizziness, mild heart failure, prolonged insomnia, or worse, heart rhythm disturbances without knowing why. Walter hasn't given up on travel, but now he sticks to local destinations and trips with others. He's become a silent speaker at retirement groups, not about the sights, but about the limitations we need to learn to accept. When you are young, you travel to discover the world. But when you are over 70, you travel to find yourself. And sometimes what you find is the limit you never dared to face. And if you're still with me here, remember, tiredness isn't always tiredness. Sometimes it's the first whisper of a body warning, "I can't run the race anymore." George Klein walked out of the immigration area, carrying a faded suitcase, his back slightly hunched but still trying to walk straight. He wore a plaid shirt buttoned up to the collar and carefully polished leather shoes. The mark of an American who had been an accountant for 40 years, accustomed to principles, to numbers, and to never doing anything without a plan. George had been planning the trip for almost a year. After his wife died, he lived alone in Boise, Idaho. The small house had become too big, too quiet. His son was busy in California, calling home every few weeks. Then, one day, George read an article about all-inclusive tropical resorts in Thailand, where seniors could spend a few weeks in peace, eating, getting treatments, sunbathing, for less than the price of a week in Florida. He carefully searched online, and then, as fate would have it, an ad popped up. 10-day Phuket vacation package, only $899, including airfare, hotel, airport transfers, and 3 meals a day. George clicked on the link. The website was professional, the pictures were dreamy, and there were video testimonials from older Americans. One man said in a thick Midwestern accent, "I've never seen a place so peaceful. I'll be back every year." George booked the tour that same day. He double-checked the confirmation email, which had an e-ticket, a map of the hotel, and even a hotline number for local 24/7 American support. The flight was more than 20 hours long, with a stopover in Seoul. George sat next to a young Korean couple, neither of whom spoke English. He ate a sandwich from a box, drank water, and reviewed his tour printout, filled with excitement. "I did the right thing. I'm going to live again. I'll email Tom, my son, later to tell him." But when he arrived at Phuket Airport, there was no one to meet him. No sign, no driver, no travel agency logo. George waited. An hour, 2 hours. When he couldn't stand standing in the crowd any longer, he took a taxi, paying double the usual price because he didn't know how to bargain. "Go to the hotel address printed on the paper. There is no hotel there. Just an empty lot under construction, with a guardhouse and a few boxes of materials. The guard doesn't speak English." George hands over the printed paper. The man shrugs, points in the opposite direction. George sits down on the steps, phone shaking in hand, dials the hotline. No one answered the phone. He tried calling again. "Turn off the machine." George still didn't understand. He couldn't understand. How could this be? The website was still there. The video testimonial was still running. The confirmation email was still in his inbox. He'd been an accountant. He wasn't a gullible person. But George had to rent a nearby hotel room, triple the price because he arrived late and didn't book in advance. He called his bank. His credit card was blocked because of irregular charges overseas. He called the embassy. He was told to send a letter confirming the fraud investigation. There was no immediate way to get his money back. The first $900, gone. The next $1,500 for hotel, food, taxis. And most importantly, the self-esteem of a man who has believed all his life that if he does everything right, he will never be cheated. George didn't tell his son. He didn't want to be asked, "Dad, why do you believe that?" He didn't want to see the look of pity or, worse, pity. Because the biggest pain after being scammed isn't losing money. It's the feeling that you're outdated, out of date, and no longer sane enough to step out into this world. AARP has warned, fraudulent travel websites are increasingly targeting people 65 and older because they are less suspicious, less likely to share, and less likely to report for fear of being judged. George was one of thousands like that, quiet, not calling the police, not telling anyone, and living on with a bitterness that is hard to name. Have you ever wondered, how many elderly people are silently suffering after a scam that they are too ashamed to talk about? How many Georges, Juness, Bettys are living with memories of trips, not fun, not beautiful, but expensive lessons that cost health, money, and self-confidence? Betty led Harold into the room. He was walking slowly but steadily with a cane. Next to them was June, The woman who had cried alone in the hospital in Paris, now wearing a pale pink sweater, her eyes shining with a strange light. She began to smile again, even when the story wasn't exactly funny. Walter was there too, still in his old sweater, his warm boots, holding the old leather notebook where he had written Ellie's words. He was no longer looking for the aurora borealis. He was looking for people who had been lost like him. George was late, as usual. He was wearing a plaid shirt, but this time he left it open at the neck and unbuttoned as usual. He put down a stack of bank printouts on the table, final proof that he hadn't gotten any money back from the scam. But he had gotten himself back. The moderator asked, "Does anyone want to share a recent travel memory?" Silent. Then June stood up. "I used to think that traveling was about finding new feelings. But after that trip, I realized what I really wanted was to find that familiar feeling again, to have someone understand me without needing to translate." Everyone was silent. But the silence was no longer cold. It was understanding. The nod of someone who had suffered but did not need to explain. Then Walter told of the time he saw the aurora through a neighbor's kid's photo. "I don't need to go there anymore. I just need to know that it's real. And I can still smile when I think about it." George didn't say much. He just showed us the printout from the fake email. He tore it up in front of everyone and laughed. For the first time since returning from Thailand, he actually laughed. It is better to lose money than to lose the ability to believe in yourself. People think that old age is a time to make up for the days of youth. But no one says that old age is also the time when the body can no longer withstand the shocks that youth once considered trivial. No one ever taught us that preparation is more important than the destination. No one ever told us that a trip can take months of recovery, both physical and mental. At the end of the meeting, Harold slowly stood up, holding Betty's hand. "I used to think I was strong enough that I didn't need anyone to remind me. But if it weren't for Betty, if it weren't for the doctor, and if it weren't for June's call that day, I probably wouldn't be standing here. And if someone asked me today, should I go? I would say, yes, but don't go alone." Ultimately, the most important thing each of us learns is not where to go, but how to go, and with whom. Because age doesn't limit your steps, but it does require you to listen to your body more than ever. You don't have to fear the journey. You just need to go with knowledge, preparation, and the courage to stop when necessary. If you are preparing to travel or have a loved one who is excited about a new journey, share this video with them. Just one small action today can protect them from a big event tomorrow. And if you've had a memorable journey, whether happy or sad, leave a comment below. We'll read it, listen to it, and maybe tell your own story in future videos. Subscribe now to never miss out on insightful stories and practical guides, specifically for seniors in America. And don't forget to like if this video has touched something in you, a memory, a lesson, or simply an awakening. Tomorrow, we'll be back with a topic that many people have requested. 5 healthy foods to prevent leg cramps in seniors. Stronger, healthier muscles. An incredibly important video, especially if you or a loved one has ever suffered from sore calves, night cramps, or chronic leg fatigue. You won't want to miss it.